this idea that you're the best.
This is where the power lies.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
You know who I am. But you don't know why I'm here.
I'm the best. I'm the best in the world.
From the top to the bottom. And because they can't handle the Macho Man Randy Savage, the cream of the crop, nobody does it better.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome back, everyone, to November 2025. I have no idea on what the date is because, as always, we're taping this in October. So happy October, everybody. It's the week before Halloween. We are taping this on the day that our Halloween Havoc 1995 show dropped. How? No, we're not.
No, day after.
Day after the day.
Morning after, I should say. Morning after.
It's someday in a week, in a year.
Yeah.
Don't know. This week, however, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the 1993 edition, the greatest pay-per-view in the history of professional wrestling. It is up there with WrestleMania 17. It is up there with WrestleMania 6. It is up there as possibly the greatest Survivor Series pay-per-view of all time. Forget the Elimination Chamber. Forget the 1992. Forget the wild card match from 1995. Forget any other survivors. Forget the introduction of War Games. This is the All-Americans versus the Foreign Fanatics. This is the 1993 Survivor Series.
And it's up there with the Montreal Screwjob, the Gang Rules.
All right. You're pushing it now. You're pushing it now.
Said no one ever. Apart from Andy
can be up
Evans
there.
10 seconds ago.
Nothing can be up there with Survivor Series Gang Rules. I mean, that was just the worst. We need to cover that. I don't know if I can wait a year to cover Survivor Series Gang Rules.
It's happening again, people. It's happening again.
No.
Executive decision.
No, because next week it's the beginning of our biggest two-parter in LAC, The Undertaker.
It is.
Continuous episode where you have to listen to part one to understand what the hell we're talking about in part two. But do you know what I mean? It's Gang Rules, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is Gang Rules. It is Gang Rules. And I've got a soft spot for that era, like 97, because it's kind of the introduction of what the birth of the Attitude Era started. And we had the only time in the WWE where we actually had numerous factions at the same time. And I like that, regardless of, some of them were better than others. But
majority of the factions, though, in that era were damn right awful. I mean, Los Boricuas.
I like Los Boricuas. And then you had Disciples of Apocalypse, which made sense. And you had Truth Commission, which were strange. It was great. You had the Nation still.
You're selling me on this era. You're selling the listeners.
It's hard. I've got a soft spot for it because I like factions. This is why I don't think factions work as much now in the modern era, because you've got to kind of have numerous factions for it to kind of work.
Yeah.
And where you only have like one, maybe two, it doesn't really work, as we're finding out with the Wyatt Six and the Vision kind of thing, which is kind of now not a faction as such. So.
Well, we don't know.
I don't know.
Because it's November and it's only October.
Exactly.
So we don't know.
But anyway, listening to this, people, in November, happy Thanksgiving from Andy Evans and I. And with that, this is the 1993 Survivor Series.
Well, before we do that, I said to a friend of mine, I went, Self, how'd you get involved with Celebrate Wrestling? And Self said, ask Stefan.
And Stefan says, Self, stop being so darn lazy.
And Self says,
yeah, thanks for that. So,
welcome.
Yes, what you do is you go over to Facebook, you search for Celebrate Wrestling, you click join, you answer a couple of questions because Mr. Zuckerberg and Meta say so. And remember, just because it's Meta doesn't mean it's better. You answer those questions, and Mike Maguire will let you in, and you can get involved in the chat and discuss with topics with all of your Celebrate Wrestling hosts, Andy and I, Mitch, Dimitri, Joe Aguinaldo, and Mike Maguire. Don't worry about any negativity in there because it's a no-jerk zone. So get involved, and we'll see you there.
Now, if you also want to listen to the shows, you can do. All you need to do is search for Celebrate Wrestling on a podcast feed. That could be Apple. It could be the Spotify. It could be the music of Amazon. It could be the Heart of iHeart Radio for that. It could just be on CelebrateWrestling.com. But all you need to do is search for Celebrate Wrestling, and you will get the shows as they. I'm very emotive today. If anyone's watching the video,
he's very animated with his hands today. He's very.
My hands
are
going all over the place. And you might want to check out our YouTube video because I don't know yet if this episode is going to drop on YouTube.
We'll have to wait to see. We're working on actually bringing up YouTube videos. Well, I say we. I'm working on it because Andy is obviously, but
because I'm unemployed. Right. Don't forget, you can listen to Mitch and Dimitri every Saturday on the alternate commentary table. That is a lot easier for them to say than what it is for me to say. And every Sunday, Mike's here with Maguire on wrestling. So, Stefan, in the
Andy.
words of a great man, are you ready? No, I said, are you ready?
I don't think I'll ever be ready for 93 Survivor Series, but let's do it.
I got a cough. It's made me cough. How the hell did Triple H do that for 10 years?
I don't know. He's become a bit of a master of that one, didn't he?
He did that and the drink swizzle.
That's become a massive thing. You see those the post show WWE PLE shows and that where they sit around the table with the live crowd in the background and they literally demand it from him now, and he sort of teases it, and he actually does it now, and it's become
he's a good lad. He's a good lad.
He gets his criticism, but Triple H.
I mean, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way: the product of WWE, even with some of the mediocre stuff that's been out there recently, is still a damn sight better than when Vince was running creative.
Oh yeah,
it makes sense for a start. Yeah. But talking about crap creative, we're in late 1993. Do you see what I did there? WWE are in between eras. Hogan has officially gone. The legal clouds are gathering. Vince is in court. TV feels safer. It's more cartoon than counterculture. There's no more Iraqi war sympathizers. There's no more Yokozuna is the big bad Japanese Polynesian. Instead, the company is putting all of its might behind the Stars and Stripes. That rhymes! The company's putting all of its might behind the Stars and Stripes as Lex Luger was getting a push. He was getting something. Whether or not it was a push, I don't know. And that all stemmed from July the 4th at the USS Intrepid, the Body Slam Challenge, where all of a sudden, the Made in the USA, Lex Luger, dropped the narcissist gimmick, smacked Yokozuna with a steel plate in the forearm, and then body slammed the Giant. In the slam heard around the world. And if your name is Lex Luger, he has kept the story straight and not changed his weight like Andre and Hogan at WrestleMania 3. But, we
hold on. Whoa. What do you mean about Hogan and Andre? Like, what happened there?
Did you not hear that Hogan managed to slam the Giant?
What? Yeah, Andre the Giant got slammed
he did.
Hulk Hogan.
And do you know, right, that 10 minutes before the slam, Andre weighed 500 pounds. But when Hogan slammed him, Andre had jumped up to 9,252 pounds of weight. And Hogan, with the 24-inch pythons, scooped Andre the Giant, lifted him high above his head, and slammed straight into hell.
Do you know what? This is quite intriguing because I've seen said body slam at WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
I don't recall Andre going above Hogan's head, as it has been told many times, but I mean, I've never understood how can, if you slam someone, you'd expect them to drop in weight. You don't gain like 8,500 pounds in weight by being slammed.
God, you sound like Simon Miller there. The way you just said that sounded very, very Miller-esque.
I take that as a compliment because I love Simon. I've worked with him.
So
one of my favourite times on commentary was with Simon Miller. And that was actually, allegedly, according to Simon Miller, that was actually the first time he'd ever done commentary.
I can believe that.
He was amazing. We had great chemistry. But anyway, shout out to Simon Miller. Mega up for Simon.
Miller time. Yeah, I did a podcast with him back in the day.
He's brilliant.
Back when he was a magazine editor for a video game magazine here in the UK.
It was an interesting day. We did the show. He did the first half of commentary with me. He main evented his first ever main event at UKPW and broke his hand in the main event as well, and then ended up at hospital, which was like a mad day. But thankfully, he was.
At least he didn't break his collarbone in rehearsal. Like an hour before the show was even due to start, and then had Andy Boy Simmons, FWA legend, Andy Boy Simmons saying, "Don't worry, just keep moving your arm up and down, it'll be fine."
What, like a bushwhacker?
Yeah, literally. He said, "Just keep moving your arm up and down, and drink and eat some sardines at the same point," and literally caused my fracture to go from a small displacement to a 6-inch displacement fracture.
Gotta keep it bloody moving, mate.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. He was like, "You don't need painkillers, just keep moving your arm up and down." And he proceeded to move my arm up. And I'm like, "Get off me! Get off! Leave me the hell alone!"
Hello, everyone. Andy's become a bushwhacker. Copyright. Oh, sorry, it's Andy, the whack-a-bush. I had to drop that in. I had to drop that in.
Waiting for you to bring that in.
I had to drop that in.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay. So let's get back. Are we doing what we do with crap pay-per-views? We kind of divert it and try not to talk about it.
But it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Is this worse than Legends of Wrestling, Heroes of Wrestling?
Oh, I don't know. I tell you what, though, what always got me about this was the intro to the show, which was Lex Luger, his wife at the time, and children doing the whole
Thanksgiving dinner,
Happy Thanksgiving introduction and everything, which it looked more like Christmas than Thanksgiving, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, didn't it? And then all of a sudden, it goes from that to, you would think the intro VT for it would be something along the lines of Thanksgiving. No, it goes to a roller coaster with some screaming sort of like weird music, and it's red. I never got that. It made absolutely no sense. You go from a quiet, serene, kind of picturesque, virtuous family having dinner and a big turkey to all of a sudden going down this roller coaster that made absolutely no sense. Really bad VFX, by the way. Into the Survivor Series.
They kind of were. It was a sign. It was. They were coming to the end of the sign of the times of the production and the World Wrestling Federation at the time, wasn't it? It was just like they had this thing which it was kind of like there was a lot of bad graphics and questionable music choices from their catalog of production music. But the one thing which to me even now I always remembered about this pay-per-view was the poster, which I always kind of found a little bit questionable when you've got a turkey with Yokozuna's wrestling attire on, and you got Luger like with a knife and fork about to dig in, and I was kind of like I don't know how people were meant to take that, because it was kind of a bit weird. And Undertaker on the poster just kind of there getting ready for his Thanksgiving feast, and I'm thinking, yeah, Undertaker looks a bit out of place here.
I mean, I did like the cartoon style of the poster. I thought that was really cool, and that was really unique. But seeing Tatanka in the original and then Photoshop the Undertaker in, it was very, very weird. So we're rushing ahead, all right? Because this pay-per-view is known for two things. It's known for the All-Americans versus the Foreign Fanatics, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's also known for the family feud, which was the Harts against Shawn Michaels and the Knights, of course, controversially not having Jerry the King Lawler in it. And then it's also known for the Doink match. as well. Right. So, where do we want to start first?
I just want to give a shout out when you was just talking about the posters. That's one thing I did love about like the early 90s was the posters. I mean, you think how iconic the early Royal Rumble posters looked, you know, where you've got like all the wrestlers like all there together, looking like they get ready for like some sort of street brawl and that. I used to love the posters back then. They were really, really good. But one of the good few things about the production back then was the posters.
To be honest, though, one of the best wrestling posters, and it still stands to this day, is the 1992 Royal Rumble.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what it is. There's just something about that poster that if I could get a full-blown 50 by 70 replica of it, I would have it in my office because it's just glorious, isn't it?
They kind of did a modern take on it. I think it was the 2005 Royal Rumble because I've still got the DVD where you actually see they've put wigs on like John Cena and Triple H and all that, and they've kind of dressed them in street clothes, you know, like from the 80s.
It was the West Side Story.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Version of it.
Yeah, and so they kind of went with that. But yeah, I totally agree with you. To me, it's one of the most iconic World Wrestling Federation posters of all time was that. So, but yeah, we're doing it again. We don't know where to start. Where do you start with this? I guess...
Why don't we just kick it off? Something we said we weren't going to do, but there's not really a lot you can talk around this pay-per-view for because it was in the sort of the end of 1993. You know, WCW wasn't becoming much of a threat. There weren't many major storylines happening in the WWF at that point. I think it was more 1994, from January of 1994 really is when that year of storylines kind of started. Although it is fair to say that, you know, one of the biggest rivalries kind of kicked off on this pay-per-view. But we're going to kick this pay-per-view off looking at Team Razor versus Team IRS. It ran for 27 minutes. It was the team of the bad guy, Razor Ramon, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, the 1-2-3 Kid, Marty Jannetty against IRS Diesel, Adam Bomb, and Rick the Model Martel. And what was intriguing about this one was the fact that, A, it was the opener, and it featured some big names in there. Former World Wrestling Federation champion, the Macho Man Randy Savage, was the biggest name out of all of that. But this match was really for one cause, and that was to continue the feud between the Macho Man and Crush, who just turned heel, had attacked him on Monday Night Raw, and that led on to WrestleMania 10 with that street fight.
Yeah, I know because Savage originally wasn't meant to be in the match. It was supposed to have been Mr. Perfect, wasn't it?
It was.
I remember. I think if I remember it, I think it was this this pay-per-view where because Razor Ramon Scott Hall does an introduction on the microphone before the match starts, and I think he mentioned Mr. Perfect, and he called him he called him Perfecto in his his accent that he did. And I remember he was like, he's so perfect. He tagged out before the match even began, and all that. It's like, oh, okay, what's going on? And then when he turns around and says like about the replacement, Savage's music hits. The place goes absolutely wild because even then we talk about Hogan towards the end of his original run in the WWE about how people were starting to go off Hogan. I even said as a Hulkamania, I was kind of starting to feel things were going a bit flat and felt that way until he changed it up in WCW as Hollywood Hogan. But Savage, to be fair, give him his credit. And bearing in mind, this is one of his final runs in the WWE as a in-ring performer before they forced him to commentary. The pop he still got, he was still massively over with the fans. And I think that was a great testament to who Savage was and the popularity that he always had in the WWF. So to bring him in over Perfect for that, obviously, to help continue the, give the newly born rivalry with Crush, I thought was a great decision to do.
it was also a really good, sorry to interrupt, it was also a really good nod to Monday Night Raw, because Raw had only started in January of 1993. So
Yeah.
it was 11 months old. So this was a prevalent angle. I mean, it had already seen big things such as the Nature Boy Ric Flair losing the career-ending match to Mr. Perfect and going back to WCW, the return of Hogan, Beefcake, and Jimmy Hart, that turn setting up WrestleMania 9. And, you know, that was quite a moment on Raw when Crush attacked the Macho Man, because they were friends in storyline. And this, to me, is the beginning of the end of the Macho Man Randy Savage in the World Wrestling Federation, because SummerSlam 1994, he was the host of the pay-per-view. Gone.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think after WrestleMania 10, I'm struggling to remember I don't think he was at King of the Ring, not competing anyway. He was on commentary. So I think WrestleMania 10 was his swan song with the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, the early signs were there, weren't it? Because he did commentary for WrestleMania 9. He came out and did was on the commentary for WrestleMania 9, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And to be fair, you know, that's one of the things I did love about WrestleMania 9 was how star-studded the commentary was. You had Jim Ross, who was fairly new to the WWE at the time. You had Vince, you had Heenan, you had Savage, you had Monsoon. You know, there were a lot going. Gene Okerlund was still doing the backstage stuff, and
So was Sean Mooney.
And Shawn Mooney. Todd Pettengill going around. Who can forget when he goes into the crowd to the Japanese fans and he's saying, he's like, oh, World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Federation, number one. And he was like, hey guys, Yokozuna, Yokozuna, number one, like that. You know, that was Todd Pettengill going out talking to fans, whether they were place fans or not. I used to love all that. But Savage, you know, I still think WWE missed a trick with Savage, because I don't think anyone could have envisioned how Savage was going to look when he went to WCW, where he kind of become a more rough and ragged version of him over time, especially when it got around to the NWO, the Madness Savage era, should I say. You can envisage that he would have been able to, he would have been anything like that if he had remained in the WWE, especially with the moving of the times. But it was nice that he got to have, you know, that sort of final run before obviously it become permanently commentary before leaving.
I think if you look back on mistakes in professional wrestling, you know, booking mistakes, creative mistakes, I think one of the biggest mistakes that Vince made in that era was putting Savage onto commentary and taking him away from the ring. Yeah, you know, Vince was going, oh, you're too old, you can't compete, blah, 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 blah. But yet you only have to move forward like 10, 15 years and you're looking at guys like DDP, you know, coming into the WWF or WCW in the mid to late 40s, right? The difference between some of these workers in their age was the fact that Savage could still go. And he had that charisma that even if the in-ring ability started to decline, he could get over by that charisma on itself, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think Savage had so much respect in the locker room that any worker would put him over and make him look good. And he
looked good in the ring with younger talent in WCW as well. And
they didn't need to carry him. You know, Savage could still go. So I think Vince, obviously there's a lot of rumors surrounding the exit, and we won't go into those because they're not founded and no one knows the true story. But I think that was the biggest mistake. One of the biggest mistakes Vince made was moving Savage to commentary, just like he was going to repeat that, you know, about 5 years ago or less than that, when Adam Cole was moving from NXT, going to main roster as a manager / commentator. I mean, you're taking a worker in their prime, or right, Savage admittedly slightly over that, but still going to shove them onto the commentary booth. Yes, it worked. Yes, Savage was brilliant on the mic, and why wouldn't you be? Because he had the charisma, he had the voice, he had the emotion to be able to carry it. But there was always something about the Savage Jim Ross relationship, the Savage McMahon relationship, I never quite got fully behind.
No. I mean, he don't get me wrong. I mean, Savage, did it wasn't necessarily bad. It just wasn't Savage. It wasn't what Savage was born to do. It wasn't. This is the problem with Vince. I mean, this is an early. I go on to say about how bizarre some of the decisions that Vince made in the latter stages, especially sort of around around 2009, 2010, for me is when WWE really declined.
Yeah.
And there were some bizarre decisions being made by Vince. And I'm just kept thinking, do you know what? You should know what works because you've been doing this for so many years and you've proven what a genius you can be and have been at times. What I don't understand your way of thinking. Now, the decision with Savage was bizarre. But when you alluded to, and I know it's more modern and we don't really go into that, but you have to use it as an example. Adam Cole, you take a talent as good as Adam Cole and you want to make them a manager and you don't want to showcase their talent in the ring on your main shows. There's something fundamentally wrong with that thought process. There really, really is. And I know Adam's been very unfortunate with concussions and health and that over the last sort of few years in AEW, and it's very, very unfortunate because I'm a big Adam Cole fan. But I don't think you tell someone to stop or take them out of their in-ring competition unless you know 100% they can't give you what you need. But you need to give them an option. Either we will keep you and we will use you sporadically and sparingly in the ring. We're happy to have you work on broadcasting, or we are in a position to offer you a mutual termination to allow you to go and compete elsewhere because we don't have anything for you. We don't think you can give us what we want. But because you've been such a great servant and done so much for us, we don't want to stop you from working out the remainder of your competitive years away from the business by keeping you here and stifling you where you're not happy. But unfortunately, wasn't like that.
I mean, let's just go to the Adam Cole situation. Vince would never have let him go, right? And I always to this day wonder if there was some professional jealousy by some of the main eventers on main roster because he would overshow them. He would outshine them.
Could you imagine if he'd stayed in the WWE and they had utilized Adam Cole correctly and he'd been a little bit more lucky with his health and injury situation?
Seth Rollins, Adam Cole.
Dominic Mysterio.
Oh.
Because he's getting better and better every time. And this is the thing, Shinsuke Nakamura, there are talent there. AJ Styles. Exactly. Could you imagine if there had been, I don't know, maybe a Survivor Series or something like one representing each brand? If they had Finn Balor, AJ Styles, and Adam Cole, and if Triple H now, because John Cena had it in his introduction for AJ Styles at Crown Jewel, when it was saying about when they actually said the leader of the Bullet Club, when they actually referenced the Bullet Club. Can you imagine what that would have been like to have had 3 former leaders of the Bullet Club? In a triple threat match, maybe a title online, maybe it's just bragging rights because it was maybe Survivor Series. Could you imagine the sort of matches? Put him in the ring against Penta again, and things like that.
We've gone way off topic, but when you think about the AAA acquisition, earlier this year, and with Cole against some of those, Viking, he could have had a great match with him, in terms of that Mr. Iguana. But even TNA, with the TNA NXT crossover, bringing Adam Cole back for that. The concussion thing with Adam Cole, we still do not know to this day what it was. It has to be concussion, I think, in my view, but that's the only thing I think it can be. We don't have an update on him as of the 23rd of October. But we're not going to go into this now because this could be an entire show on its own. But I do put it out there is it unlucky on Adam Cole's part that he's had the concussion? Or is it down in part to the working style of AEW?
I think there's an element of truth there. I mean, this is the thing that we're seeing with AEW a lot is there are a lot of injuries that are occurring in AEW. There is a lot of, or should I say, a massive lack of restriction on what boundaries are crossed in terms of what individuals are doing in the ring and in their matches. And I know it's been criticised by legends that have said, there's not that much protection, that some of them are doing too much. They're pushing their bodies, and some of the things that they are doing are crossing lines, and they're putting themselves majorly at risk. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the younger stars in AEW that, you look at the likes of Darby Allin. I mean, Darby Allin, if he hadn't done half the things he's put his body through, he would probably have had at least another 10 to 15 years on his career. I expect his career to get cut massively short because unfortunately, as you age, your body will catch up with you. And I do think it's unfortunate, but who are you to tell someone what they can and can't do with their body? That's
exactly.
The thing.
But also
their body.
When you sign on to it, you sign on to the company, right? Especially even if you're coming in.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I mean, Moxley is for Moxley, this is a dream. He's done some of these bigger stunts, but we're moving away from that. Let's move on. That was the first match, Team Razor versus Team IRS. Team Razor went over. It was Marty Jannetty, the man who says the WWE are blocking him from the Hall of Fame, and the 1-2-3 Kid going over. Next up was the Hart Family versus Shawn Michaels and the Knights. So this was Bret, Owen, Bruce, and Keith, joined at ringside by the patriarch Stu Hart, the legend, facing off against Shawn Michaels and the three Knights, which were all wrestling legends under a mask. Can't remember who they were, but all wrestling legends. One of them was Terry Gordy. I know that. Bam Bam Terry Gordy from the Freebirds. was one of them. Now, the grand plan was going to be Bret humbling Jerry the King Lawler. Because, all through 1993, it was Lawler, taking the mick out of the Hart family, taking the mick out of Bret. But they pulled Lawler at the 11th hour, put in Shawn Michaels. You've lost the central crux, the central reasoning for this match. So what do? What do, Stefan? You create a new storyline.
You do. And I've just fact-checked, just because we're on air, and I think it's good for the listeners that didn't know. The three Knights were Greg the Hammer Valentine, Barry Horowitz, and Jeff Gaylord. There we go. I wanted to fact-check that, because if we're going to talk about it, let's get some facts in it. Let's tell people.
You got the name wrong.
What?
Not Barry Horowitz. It's Barry Horriblewitz.
Anyway... officially his name was Barry Horowitz, but Andy is also correct. Not to sound disrespectful, but yeah, that
Barry.
That was...
But it was a really hard one to try and say. Barry Horriblewitz.
Yes, it's something you sort of say if you were drunk and you're slurring your words. I remember Barry Horriblewitz.
Anyway, before we get taken off the air, this was. I remember watching this match going, actually, the first time I saw it, I thought, actually, this is not a bad match. This is the entire Hart legacy. This is Bret and Owen. Woohoo! Against Shawn and the Knights. Big, lumbersome Knights. Didn't really think much about them. I didn't think it dragged.
No, I actually, for the most part, I enjoyed this match. My only issue was the three Knights, because I would have preferred it if it had been three known wrestlers that everyone who could know right off the bat who they were. That for me was my only issue. Obviously, it was all about the whole setting up, adding fuel to the fire with the breakdown of relationship between Owen and Bret. And that's kind of what it was. It had to be Shawn Michaels. That was the guy on the other side of the ring to Bret. But yeah, for me, I enjoyed the match. It just, the whole three Knights thing just frustrated me.
I want you to go back to being a fan. Just for a minute. Not a journalist, not a broadcaster, not a smart fan. Just a fan, right? When you go back to being a kid.
Well, yeah, I would have been 11 years old.
Yeah. So you're watching that match, right? Having your popcorn or whatever it is, watching it on VHS or whatever, and you see Owen Hart run to the ropes, and then you suddenly see Bret at that moment decide to walk down the apron.
Yeah.
Gets knocked into Owen. Owen gets rolled up and gets the 3, right? At that point, you're like, as a fan, you're like, oh no, is Bret okay? I can't believe that Owen got pinned. No, bad Owen. Looking back on it now, who was the heel? Bret. It was Bret's fault. Bret screwed Owen in that Survivor Series. Why did Bret at that moment decide to walk down the apron?
You know what I don't like about? Do you know what I didn't like about that? Bret Hart being the excellence of execution, being the wrestler he was, and for the mind of the business, it was a bizarre thing to walk down the rope knowing when you have a partner running the ropes in the ring. It's beyond a rookie mistake. That's not something, honestly, I remember when I used to train back in the late 2000s, but before my health said no, one of the fundamental things you was taught was if you're in a tag team match, you need to have that ring awareness, even when you are the wrestler that is on the apron. That's not the legal partner in the ring in the match, because you need to be wary of the individuals that are in the ring that might be running the ropes. It's a big no-no. And I was more shocked that it was a rookie mistake. Bret Hart didn't make rookie mistakes. And I'm like, what?
The angle would have worked better if it had been Bruce or Keith that forgot where they were. Because bear in mind, they're all trained. They're all trained by Legendary Steve. But let's just say Keith, who was a fireman, just forgot where he was at that moment and then walked down the aisle and took Owen out. You still can do the whole thing with Owen getting really peed off about the fact that he was the only Hart brother eliminated. Bret trying to come in to calm the situation down, because you're having the 2 and 8 between Keith and Owen, and then Owen decks the Hitman Bret Hart. That would have been a much better way of starting the program. Instead, you've got this big conversation about, actually, I'm on Owen's camp, because Bret cost Owen. If Bret hadn't decided to walk down that apron, Owen wouldn't have got pinned.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And I think the other thing as well, what they did do right was when Bret's on the mat on the outside and the rest of the Hart brothers, bar Owen, are checking on him, and Owen's looking over, and they're all their attention and focus is on Bret, and that I like that, because it does stoke that jealousy, that whole, hey, I'm your brother too, like what about me? And I like that because that was something which he could use going forward. Now it was necessary. The frustrating thing that I always found throughout the rivalry, and this is the thing, is how much of this rivalry surrounded on, they relied so much on Bret being hurt, Bret favouring the knee. It got to a point where it was kind of like, honestly, if his knee is that bad every time and he's always getting hurt, and that, it's kind of like, the guy shouldn't be in the ring. How can he be medically cleared? Because it's like it was all the time. It didn't switch up a bit. That's not anything against Bret. That's nothing against Hart. It's probably what creative or Vince turned around and said, "Oh, favour your knee, favour your knee. Do it that way." Bret was extremely good at selling.
Just to go to that point. Sorry, I'm just going to interject and then carry on. I don't disagree with you. I don't agree with you, but I don't disagree with you either, because actually, if Bret is favouring the knee, right, one of the things that Bret does is the sharpshooter. So if that knee is gone, that takes away the biggest weapon in his arsenal.
That does actually. You are right. You are right. It was just, it always seemed to be the knee. Like, for example, it worked well at the Royal Rumble in '94 because obviously Owen kicking his leg out of his leg, as he said,
hanging down his nose.
And obviously it put Bret at a massive disadvantage in the Rumble match later on in the show, which obviously he was meant to come out. Well, apparently was meant to come out a little bit earlier, but apparently that was someone else. but he did come out and he put him at a huge disadvantage. But what I give a lot of credit to Brett for was how he knew how to sell. I mean, he made it look so believable that he'd injured himself. I can't remember the last time I ever saw someone having to wrestle half a match favouring the knee, favouring it after the match to the point where his leg's kicked out of his leg, to the point where he's limping all the way down to the ring for the Royal Rumble, working the Royal Rumble with that said favoured knee, and managing to keep it going. Yeah, and doing the double finish. Honestly, that's something I don't think gets talked about enough. Because that's a lot to mentally remember. I have to keep this believable.
But that is why Bret the Hitman Hart, without a doubt, is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
100%.
That's not a love letter to the Hitman. I am a massive Hitman Bret Hart fan, right? I always have.
Yeah.
I was always pink and black. I was always red and yellow.
Yeah.
In the 80s, but then
I was always pink and black, but I didn't like pink. That was my thing.
Yeah. I was always part of the pink and black attack.
Yeah.
Right. I thought Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart was brilliant. The match was dreadful, really. But it did give us quite possibly one of the top 5 angles in wrestling history, which was Bret versus...
Without a doubt. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair...
Not.
No, absolutely. I don't... Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I never usually say anyone's opinion is wrong, because if it's your opinion, it's opinion. But anyone who thinks otherwise on this, you are right. So to sound like a hypocrite, but, but what I did love about this as well was it was the first real insight to seeing Owen in a new light, because for so long, obviously, the Rocket Owen Hart, he was this really energetic, happy sort of me sort of persona, to when you saw the script flipped and that switch went off and you saw him overcome with jealousy and hatred building and that in him. You saw this other side of Owen. And you're thinking, hold on here. He's got something. This is quite believable, and he portrayed it so well.
We talk about performers having to reach for that brass ring, to break through that glass ceiling, right? This feud, this match, this match will start the crack.
Yeah,
breaking through. The 1994 Royal Rumble did the crack, and then WrestleMania 10 for me took him over.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you got one of the best matches of WrestleMania in WrestleMania history. It's not only just that, but also the opener of WrestleMania 10. I mean, it's incredible. But one thing I will say, I just want to allude to when you talked about the '94 Rumble, and I know we're not talking about that show specifically, but
you can listen to it in the archives. We covered it in
absolutely.
January.
Was if you look at that. The interview with Owen after he turns on Bret at the '94 Royal Rumble, where he does the whole kick the leg out of the leg, the whole thing. He did something which you don't see very often on heel turns. It's that the way he delivered it was so believable because he shows that frustration. It's that kind of like, where he does that whole thing where he's like, there's that moment where he kept saying to Bret, all you had to do was tag me, just tag me. And then he just goes, but you're too damn selfish. It's like that frustration. That it's not, it's like Owen didn't want to do it, but he felt it had to come to this because he thought Bret was selfish. And it's the way he did it. He delivered his line. And his body language was perfect. You actually kind of was like, I don't know if I hate you for what you've just done to Bret and him being your brother, but I kind of sympathize with you a little bit that you were forced to this. It was believable.
It really was. But also, just going back to this match, and it's just literally come to me, there's so many little hidden nods about where this could come from. Because if you look at the singlets that the Hart family wore, the only one who wore a different singlet was Bret.
Yeah.
And he was in the bright pink. Everybody else was in the pink and the darker, the darker pink, black type of color. Bret, bright pink. That's it.
Yeah.
Again, showcasing, I'm the best. I'm the leader. I'm the captain. I'm the elder brother. It's when you... I think we all get criticized as smart wrestling fans sometimes because we break the product down and we look at it and we go, this was bad and I wouldn't have done this, and it's 6 minutes and 22 seconds. They counteracted what they said on Raw in 1992. But actually, when you stop and you look at the match and you look back at what we do on this show and you look back in time and you look back at history, when you go back and watch these again on Netflix or on Peacock or on ESPN, wherever the hell you watch it, there's these little nuances that you don't pick up the first or the second time. It's like you're now talking about we're talking about the feud. We know what happens after the Survivor Series. We know where it goes. And yet now with that set going, was Brett the heel? Was Owen went wrong, but was Brett the catalyst for this?
I think it is something which you could do in hindsight when you know where the trajectory went, where the direction went. You can look back on things and then you kind of notice these minor details and go, that makes so much sense now. I kind of get what they did there. And
it also raises so many other questions. What if
it really
does. This angle, or what if they've done it
absolutely.
This way? Or what
and this is why I hope one day we can maybe actually sit down with Brett, and this is why we want to try and get legends to come onto our show to talk about these things from their perspective and share some of the things that we wouldn't necessarily know about, and to understand the process and what it was like going through that. But to be fair as well, take nothing away, the match wasn't good overall. It served its purpose for what it was doing, which was obviously to kickstart more of the Brett v. Owen fallout and rivalry. But I mean, some people forget, let's not forget the other Hart brothers like Bruce and Keith that could wrestle.
They hadn't been in the ring for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, they hadn't. But, it was, I'm sure, probably the same thing with the Canadian Stampede in was it 97, wasn't it? I think. Where it must have been a really proud moment for the Hart family to have the family on one team.
I'm calling an audible. Next year we're doing Canadian Stampede.
We are.
I think it's in the menu. I can't remember. Anyway, we go from one memorable match to one I really want to forget it match, because that's the SMW tag team titles, which was the Heavenly Bodies against the Rock and Stock Connection, then the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton. This was, how can I call this? This was the loop break, because they brought Southern wrestling to a Northeastern crowd that didn't give a damn about Southern wrestling and didn't really care about the SMW, which was the Smoky Mountain Wrestling tag team titles. They did it under SMW rules, which meant if you went over the top rope, it was a disqualification, just like WCW. Always hated that rule.
Yeah, same.
Why? That's what the top rope is there for. To throw
I think it's that whole, because they want to restrict the match to be specifically in the ring, which is why we have cage matches now. That's what cage matches were for. That's what the cage matches were for, to keep the action in the ring. Just stick a cage around the ring.
But I was really surprised they didn't do a Lord Mount Evans match in here. Join up with the FWA or something and do it. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Don't even want to talk about this one because it was crap. It was terrible.
Now it's unfortunate because you've got two very solid tag teams there. I mean, Rock and Roll Express are legendary. I mean, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, they're Hall of Famers, and rightly so. I mean, I still, to this day, knowing that, up until recently, well, I say recently, in the last sort of few years, they were still wrestling together as a tag team. Is it? I think Ricky Morton
and his son.
That's it. Yeah, still going. It's amazing. And I mean, I've seen footage of him and his son wrestling now, and he can still move at his age is incredible. But for a team like that, and the Heavenly Bodies, all right, they didn't hit major stardom in the WWE, but Jimmy Del Rey and Dr. Tom Pritchard, were solid workers. They were a good team. And then you throw Jim Cornette into the mix as well. It didn't deliver.
It didn't.
But the WWE kind of had this weird thing in the 90s, didn't they, where they would bring like sort of the outsiders. They would do a lot of this Smoky Mountain Wrestling matches. You know, we had it with was it the NWA when we'd have Jeff Jarrett.
Oh God, not the NWA.
The NWA, yeah, they had all these like affiliate matches and things like that, which were just random. But that's the thing, that the fans never really cared. You know, as you get older and you become, I wouldn't say wrestling historians, but you know, your knowledge goes and you get outside the WWE and the WCW bubble that we grew up in, and ECW as well, and you sort of look back on, you know, the days before us and the other promotions which we didn't have any real exposure to back then, and you kind of look at it and you just go, but why didn't this work? And I think it just comes down to the fact is that probably that there wasn't a lot of eyes on those promotions unless you were actually there, because they didn't have a lot of TV coverage, and we didn't have the internet.
It was a regional promotion up in the South, right? It was Southern Tag Team Wrestling. Unless you watched WCW or the NWA, you didn't really know who the Rock and Roll Express were anyway. And not being funny, you know, when you look at the roster of the World Wrestling Federation, when you look at guys like Marty Jannetty or Razor Ramon or Adam Bomb to a degree, and then you look at Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, who were getting past their prime in 1993. Tom Pritchard, you know, I've interviewed Tom Pritchard before, genuinely lovely guy, and there is not one person in this industry who knows more about professional wrestling than Tom Pritchard, and that comes across. Let's call it what it was. This was a match designed for two reasons: to bring the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette into the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It wasn't meant for anything else. It was a way to appease Jim Cornette by saying, we'll give you some time on TV and Jim Cornette having a cheeseburger. But that's all it was. So
yeah,
move on.
This I think also comes at a time where tag teams, like, this is the thing where there were these transitions when it came to tag team divisions in the World Wrestling Federation. You had the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, sort of 91, 92, where they started to phase out a lot of the old tag teams. You know, the Hart Foundation split, the Rockers had split, Demolition had gone, LOD were in and out, and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers weren't there. You look at a lot of the tag teams that, there weren't a lot there. And there seemed to be this period between sort of around about late 92 through to probably, I would say, 96, 97, where you only had a couple of a few tag teams that were sort of there. The Heavenly Bodies, Men on a Mission, for example. If the Heavenly Bodies were in the WWE in the late 80s or the very early 90s, before 93, they would have fit in very, very well. Same thing with like the Beverly Brothers, who they weren't fantastic, but tag team wrestling was at its peak back then. You had so many different teams you could work with. The division was thriving. The tag titles meant something. And then you had this period, you didn't really get all the tag teams back until around 97, again, with like the factions, the gang rules type thing. And then when you had the likes of the New Age Outlaws coming, the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, going through into the Attitude Era and so what, until they all started to die off in the sort of late 2000s.
It gets to one thing when you're watching a tag team match and they've got rid of the tag rope.
Shit, yeah.
Because that suddenly just disappeared, didn't it?
It really did, yeah.
And then there was this big moment when the tag rope suddenly reappeared, and people were like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Do you notice where it just randomly appeared? If you always watch the partner that was on the apron, where they just sort of like just randomly would look to their side and just no, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, the tag rope," and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I must hold on to this. I must hold on to this." Like they completely forgot that it was even there.
Is it still there? Because I watch Monday Night Raw and everything else. I can't say I look so closely anymore at the turnbuckles, but is the tag rope still there?
Do you know what? I don't know. I've not looked.
I need to look. I'm going to go and watch a Raw from Netflix. And
I don't think it is. But they used to. always make a point of like show it off. Like they would always have a thing where they'd grab it and they'd sort of like pull it upwards a little bit, like to show that they were holding it.
It was such a great tool as well, because if you were the heel tag team, you could just wrap it around the neck of your opponent when the referee was being distracted. That was, tag team wrestling. It's lost the trick. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Next up, it's the first year of the 4 Doinks. So we know in 1994 we had Doink, Dink, Wink, and Pink up against Jerry Lawler and Sneezy, Queasy, and Sleazy. This year, however, we had the Bushwhacker Doinks and Men on a Doink.
Yeah. Whoa! We don't got bloody colours, mate. Sorry.
So Whacker Doink and Men on a Doink came out and faced the team of Bam Bam Bigelow, the Head Shrinkers, and my old buddy, my brother, my tag team partner, me from another mother, Bastion Booger.
Do you know what? I watched a YouTube video a little while ago which said the most bizarre WWE.
You'll go with this.
No, the family show, Andy. It was a video someone had done on YouTube of the most bizarre and weirdest WWE merchandise of all time, and there are some really weird stuff in there. What they could have made one of those whack-a-mole games, but with Whack-a-Doink, with doinks popping up and whacking doinks over the end. You could literally fills in with the whole circus theme. It was a circus type fun fair sort of thing. That didn't happen.
This is a character, right? Doink, and do you want to know something? This episode has gone a damn sight longer than I expected it to. Right? It really has. We've barely talked on the pay-per-view, but it's been quite good. When are we going to talk about Doink again? The thing that gets me about Doink is how this became such an over character. I mean, from even the moment Matt Bourne debuted as heel Doink, right? The evil clown, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? The sadistic evil clown, back then was just, you hadn't seen it before. Yet it was teetering on the borderline of being kid-friendly to giving kids post-traumatic stress disorder. But it was brilliant, and it was very dark. And the fact that he laid out Crush with the mannequin arm and pulled his arm out and smacked him with that, brilliant. How the God's name did you go from that to the crowd in the arena chanting throughout this match, "We want Doink"?
He was over, and I think it just sometimes things work and they don't make sense. I mean, you should know of all people, in professional wrestling, not everything has to make sense, and the crowd love what the crowd love. This is the problem. This is where WWE has suffered a lot over the years. Don't force feed people that they're not on board with, that they can't get behind, because they will resent you for it. Like, the crowd know who they want to cheer for, who they want to boo. And sometimes, you look at R-Truth. R-Truth, don't get me wrong, he's actually a good worker. We never get to see his work very often in the ring. But it's got to a point, I remember in sort of like the mid-late 2000s, where people really didn't like R-Truth. That I still remember people saying, why is R-Truth still got a job in the WWE? The guy is so boring, like, there's nothing there. What happened? R-Truth showed his personality, his comedic side. Everyone fell in love with R-Truth, and everyone loves R-Truth. And look at what happened when he got that release for all of about a week. It's not just about him, but it's his peers, the people that he surrounds himself with in the locker room. He's one of those individuals where, his presence would be missed. And for whatever reason, I think the introduction of Dink helped, because, I used to love the fact where they used to do an entrance and Dink would be like sort of skipping up and down the aisle and everything, like, slapping hands with all his fans. And I think when Doink become fun, and he could still kind of be heelish because he could be crafty with certain things, like spraying out of his flour and, to opponents and things like that. He's one of those characters that could bend the rules, but the crowd would love it because they would see it as heels getting their karma, their comeuppance. And he was one of those personas that could do it, but it worked. And he wasn't particularly successful in his win-loss ratio, but it was great. And I think it was sad. I mean, we remember the times when Chris Jericho came out dressed as Doink, and people still went bananas. Doink was in the gimmick battle royal. All right, it wasn't Matt Bourne, but still,
it doesn't matter who plays Doink.
It doesn't.
It's I could put a Doink costume on, and our podcast would be number 1 on iTunes.
Honestly, Doink is one of those anomalies that just worked, and the fans loved it. And
you know what? I am glad though that even though he was over, or the character was over, that Vince didn't go and pull the trigger and put a championship on Doink the Clown.
No, he's not a character that it would have worked.
I don't think I could look through the history records of the WWE and talk about Intercontinental Champions, and then all of a sudden, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Doink the Clown.
Well, WrestleMania, the arcade game, it was kind of like that. But
or in your house on PS1 where you could.
Oh yeah, that game was terrible. But the thing is, not everyone has to have a championship run to be successful. They don't.
Roddy Piper.
Well, yeah, I mean, all right, he had the IC title, but but not everyone has to have a title. Yeah, Ted DiBiase is one. You don't. It's the impact you leave, no matter how big or how small or medium it is. You leave a legacy. And Doink, even now, you mentioned Doink the Clown. The majority of fans will still remember Doink the Clown, even if they weren't necessarily born at that point or they were too young to watch back then. They've heard of Doink the Clown at some point over the years. But yeah, he was just great fun, and he played both roles brilliantly, whether it was the sinister heel, borderline, terrifying Doink the Clown that debuted, absolutely, or the fun Doink the Clown with Dink, and everyone loved it.
I've got a tag team for you. Psycho Clown and Doink the Clown.
There you go. Yeah, that would have worked.
Yeah. Right, moving on. This is it, the main event. The All-Americans versus the Foreign Fanatics. We have got to crowd match number 5. That's all we've done. 5 matches.
Yeah, I do want to touch something about that match. Men on the Mission in that match. Obviously, you guys are going to be listening to this in November. Obviously, this past in October, we lost the other half of Men on the Mission, Bobby Horn, who was Sermo. He passed away this past week. Unfortunately, now joining Nelson Frazier, also known as Mabel, King Mabel, and Viscera, Big Daddy V, to another one to add to Heaven's roster. Men on the Mission can tag up again, and I mean, I've met Oscar a few times. Oscar actually got to spend weekend with him in Dallas. He was actually in the same hotel, and he was there as part of the. He was invited as a guest of the company that we booked our WrestleMania trip with, and got to speak to Oscar quite a bit. And lovely guy.
Is he still alive?
Yes, Oscar's still alive. He's not in the greatest of health. Has some mobility issues, but a very, very lovely guy. He was on our coach when we went to and from the AT&T Stadium for both nights of WrestleMania. As I said, he stayed in the hotel. He was at this is quite cool. All right, we had a members only VIP party. It was everyone that booked through this company were there, and there was all of us there. Oscar was there, Giselle Shaw, Jonathan Gresham was there, and Jordan Grace were there, and it was just all of us having this
nice
party. It was great. But Oscar being there, and it was like, because he was there, and he just seemed happy to be amongst wrestling fans. He's such a gentle person to have a conversation with, and he's got a lot of time for people. And you kind of, without putting out some sort of pity party, I kind of felt sorry for him in some ways, because, as I said, didn't seem to be in the best of health, but he seemed so happy being surrounded by enthusiastic wrestling fans and talk about his heyday in the WWE literally a really lovely guy, and I wish him all the best. As I said, he didn't seem to be in the best of health, and as I said, mobility issues and that, but what a lovely guy. And and obviously I've not spoken to him in a couple of years now, and I really hope he's okay now that he's lost. Now that Bobby Horn has now passed, because obviously losing Nelson Frazier before then, I think it was very sad for him. Two of the close guys that he worked with during this era are no longer with us. So so just want to send out my my thoughts and condolences out to the friends and family of Bobby Horn. Rest in peace.
Same here, absolutely. Okay, let's bring it back to the main event of the Survivor Series 1993 because the crowd finally woke up. It was the Dead Man versus the Polynesian Man.
That's brutal.
What?
Oh dear! I tell you what. And I remember you say the crowd woke up. I'll tell you. I still remember to this day exactly what I was when I watched this pay-per-view for the first time. I was still only thinking about one thing as we got to the main event. The Owen Hart situation, the Bret and Owen thing, that was on my mind.
Unfortunately, that's what suffered this pay-per-view because this wasn't actually that bad a main event, but it paled in comparison to the Harts. What we did get out of it though was the setup for the 1994 Royal Rumble because the Undertaker and Yokozuna both brawl outside of the ring, get counted out. Beautiful way to protect both men. Luger got the win, though, by using a plate on Ludwig Borger, the former Finnish Prime Minister. Now, what happened then is I don't even know how to do this. So we're in Thanksgiving. Obviously, what comes after Thanksgiving, Stefan?
Christmas.
And who is the main big dude of Christmas?
It is a Santa Claus.
Did you know that Santa Claus was at the 1993 Survivor Series?
Yes, I did.
He hit the aisle, snow falled, flags waved, and we went off the air going, what in the blue hell was that?
See, he also looked like how I would have expected someone to have looked after being body slammed by Hulk Hogan. He didn't gain 8,500 pounds like Andre allegedly did. Santa lost quite a bit of weight, and
he'd been on that Ica Pro.
He must have been. That's going back some time, isn't it? I remember the old Ica Pro.
He was one of those leftover competitors of the WWF.
WWF, yeah. That's how we knew Luger.
Ah, yes.
It all makes sense now.
Oh my God. What was interesting though was this was meant to be Lex Luger's year, the big push. We talked about it earlier on. He never went over Yokozuna.
No.
He won this match by pinning Borger. Yeah?
Well, he kind of he never went over via pinfall or submission, did he? He just never.
Yeah, but it was
always like a double disqualification or a double count out or something like that.
He never got the shoulders down for a 3, which is what he wanted. That was the ultimate payoff, and he never got it.
And it's still bizarre to this day. I don't. Do you know what? I really wish. I mean, I don't know Lex really. I know he's touched on certain things, and I love the fact that Lex now he's been doing DDP yoga. He started to do more interviews. He's now been in a better place to do more interview. I love hearing from Lex. As I said, I love spending time with him in Philly. It just, I would love to have a definitive explanation as to why they didn't pull the trigger on him. Now, he has touched on previously, and I know we mentioned this before, where he spoke to the likes of Chris Van Vliet, what I call the god of
he's a goat.
Wrestling interviews. He's the goat, top guy.
Yeah. He's a goat.
Amazing. But
I would love to have Van Vliet on this show.
Oh, yeah. I should have asked it. I wasn't doing Legends and Champions at the time, but I wish I'd asked him. But this is the thing with Lex is, he has touched on, he was asked about it, and he did say maybe he should have conducted himself better. I know he said the difference was back then during this period, he didn't understand the wrestling fandom. He didn't understand why wrestling fans were obsessed with why grown men were obsessed with, a guy like him and things like that. He didn't understand all of that. And I think that might have gone down to the fact that he had spent a lot of his career working as a heel prior to this point. and I think maybe he wasn't as comfortable. But he had said, that there was footage that came out a few years ago of behind the scenes of Luger basically mocking fans. Like a kid had given him like a drawing or something, and he kind of took the mick out of it, which doesn't paint Luger in a very good light. I don't know whether or not Vince and Creative at that time saw that in Luger and was kind of like, yeah, I don't think we should pull the trigger on this guy. I really don't. Maybe that's why they kept teasing it, was to see how the fans would react. And maybe for whatever, I'd love a definitive reason as to why they ended up, pulling the rug out from under him and not pulling that
I've been working for 15 years to try and get Lex Luger on a show, so I will continue to work.
That would be amazing.
Right, let's go backstage with some backstage news and some backstage politics. The Undertaker's flag jacket. Now, one of the things that always got kind of like a really weird reaction was this whole American flag in the Undertaker's jacket. Well, Mark Calloway has gone on record to say that he hated the patriotic coat liner. It was nowhere near my character.
And this is where, if he had been the American badass, it would have worked perfectly.
Yeah, he said he did it to make the angle work, but it tells you how badly the WWF wanted to juice up Luger's team and set up this Yoko Taker feud with that blooming either. Now, let's also go back to the Knights match, because you told us who the Knights were, but did you know that the Funker, Terry Funk, was due to be a Knight, but he sent a telegram in going, "My horse is sick."
I gotta love Terry Funk.
Hence,
that sounds like a sort of Terry Funk thing. I love it.
Barry Horowitz was the man under the mask. By gate, Survivor Series 1993 drew only 180,000 buys. It was the lowest Survivor Series to that point, and it was the first of the big four, so the Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and WrestleMania, to draw under a 1.0 buy rate. Now, if you think that transcended to the crowd, you would be wrong, because the Boston fans in the Boston Garden sold out. The gate, however, is the lowest since 1989, which means what you can take away from that, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, is that the brand equity is beginning to slip, and the all traditional elimination matches are getting dull. Hence why we then started to see this change up of the way Survivor Series works. It was also the last appearance of Bobby the Brain Heenan in the World Wrestling Federation, taking place in that SMW match, which we forgot to mention was also the Radio WWF.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed our Bobby the Brain Heenan show. I absolutely loved doing that. And I remember at the beginning of this show where you actually see Bobby Heenan at ringside. I mean, Monsoon's on commentary, but Vince is standing near the commentary desk with Bobby Heenan. He actually says to Bobby Heenan, something along the lines of, "You need to stay in line, otherwise, I'll basically you'll get good. Monsoon will sort you out." And and Heenan dealing with it the way that Heenan does. And do you know what? I listen back. I listen back to our shows because I like to. I like to listen. I like to be able to enjoy the conversations Andy and I have without, after we've actually spoken about it. I like to listen back to what we've said. Sometimes I think, oh, we didn't touch on that enough or whatever. And do you know what? I really, really, it gave me this feeling of, I need to go back and watch, basically do like a best of Bobby Heenan, like viewing thing. And, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to compile a list of some of the top Bobby Heenan moments on commentary, the shows he did, and appearances overall. I actually started watching Tuesday Night Titans again because of how much he was on there, doing his comedy, almost his comedy skits. It's just, it really makes you appreciate, and I'm grateful now to have been a wrestling fan, a kid wrestling fan that didn't understand the business, but I got to live through the best of Bobby Heenan in the WWE and the WCW years. I'm thankful and grateful that I got to experience that as a fan. And I'm not, a younger fan now that has to go all the way back to and not realise what it was like at the time. God bless Bobby Heenan, honestly.
Well, you can watch the Bobby Heenan documentary on the WWE Vault on YouTube in documentaries. Right, let's have a look as we begin to come to the end of this roller coaster ride of the Survivor Series 93. Let's just sum up some of the big key points coming out of this pay-per-view. Kicking off, of course, with Brett and Owen. The Survivor Series planted the seed. It was tag title shot line at the Royal Rumble against the Quebecers. It was Brett Owen kicking the leg out of the leg, whatever it was. And then you've got the opener at WrestleMania 10, going all the way through to SummerSlam 1994. Undertaker Yokozuna carried on at the 1994 Royal Rumble with the casket match, returns at SummerSlam, and then at SummerSlam 1994 wins the casket match with the enforcer Chuck Norris at ringside. Luger co-wins the 94 Royal Rumble, gets Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10 with Mr. Perfect as the referee, gets DQ'd, and then is gone. Razor, IRS, and Shawn. IRS is the bridge feud, but we know where we're going, and that again is WrestleMania 10. The bad guy, Razor Ramon, versus the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, for the World Wrestling Federation IC Championship. Savage versus Crush finishes, as we said, in that Falls Count Anywhere match at Mania, and officially last WWF match before jumping to WCW. The Steiners fade out of the WWF in 1994, moving back to WCW. Ludwig Borger gets injured in January of 1994 and disappears from the company. Push abandoned. The roster keeps reshuffling as WCW starts to open its wallet. And as for the Survivor Series, well, the format undertook shifts both in 1994 and 1995. More title matches, fewer everyone in the pool tag matches, the traditional Survivor Series. The lesson of 1993 really did land, because that's the one thing that didn't work. Ultimately, if you want to look at the history of Survivor Series, you've got to say that this one, as much as it was dull, was a turning point for the pay-per-view, and it went through some very, very trying years. And I think for a pay-per-view brand, the Rumble will always be the Rumble. That has an identity. SummerSlam will always be WrestleMania Light. WrestleMania will always be WrestleMania.
I mean, you could always argue that, Royal Rumble, if anything, now we have 2 Rumble matches.
Well, yeah, we
have
do.
the men and the women's now. So it's
where I was going with this was the Survivor Series is the one brand in the World Wrestling Federation that I feel never had a true identity. No. They threw everything at it to see if it would fit. The Elimination Chamber was meant to have been exclusive to Survivor Series, got its own pay-per-view.
Oh, I hate that.
But now I think the Survivor Series, as we wrap up November, has got a new identity. War Games.
Yeah. I mean, I still miss the classic Survivor Series tag match, elimination tag matches. I still think, there's more than enough on the roster when you throw in Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and now even TNA to an extent, where you can bring still bring those back. And maybe the main event is War Games, but the rest of the show could be those matches again. But I mean, hear me out, and this is just a concept. I mean, some people go, that's a stupid idea, and that's fine. This is just literally coming to me now. So I've not had a lot of time to think this through. What if, you remember we discussed before about Survivor Series matches, the way they used to do the Soul Survivor main event, where it'd be the survivors from each
the
team.
1990s Survivor
and
Series. They
would tell. What if they actually did it where the Soul Survivors actually competed in 2 War Games teams?
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Just throwing that out there. I just think there's something a little bit crazy and unpredictable about it.
I think it would work, and I think it's a really good option. But I do also wonder if the War Games potentially it's a feud ender, right? I don't know this year how they're going to incorporate War Games.
No, I don't. I think you could almost bet Roman Reigns will be in it.
Well, I've got a feeling it's going to be something to do with the Vision. But obviously, it's not going to have Seth Rollins in it.
It's possible. I think that's the key. I mean, sorry people that were touching on modern at the moment, but I think the interesting thing is going to be what they do with Seth when he comes back. Do they put him back as a face, or do they keep him as a heel, but just having to go after Breaker? And
kind of think they have to bring him back as a face.
The question is, though, now this is the out of the box idea thing that I'm thinking when it comes to this. Rollins versus Breaker and Bronson Reed on his own is not going to work.
No.
Could we, because Roman's missing out of things now. Rollins is out at the moment, allegedly having shoulder surgery. But could there be finally a burying of the hatchet or a mutual coming together between Rollins and Reigns again?
No, not the Shield.
No, well, it's not going to be, is it? Because we're not going to have Moxley there, are we? We're not going to have Dean Ambrose there. That we know of. But those two, could they sort of be like,
possibly.
All right, let's put our differences. Because we've seen it in WWE many times where you've got a mutual adversaries and you kind of go, let's put our personal stuff aside. Yeah. We know we can work together. Why don't we?
Who knows where we're going to be by the time this show airs in November? We've got a big couple of weeks happening in real time.
Jey Uso would be a heel.
Well, that's where I was going, because breaking the fourth wall down, as we said, it's the 23rd of October. We're recording this. Next weekend is Saturday night's main event on the 1st of November, which is Jey Uso versus CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title. And I'm going to call it now. It'll be interesting for us to kind of pick this up. We make this mistake all the time because we forget we're pre-recorded. Jey Uso, Vision.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, it's actually come out today. So again, breaking the fourth wall. It actually come down. There's been a few articles that have come out doing the rounds on social medias, which have actually shown Jey Uso winning the Battle Royal on Raw to become the number one contender with CM Punk at Saturday night's main event. Has got over 17,000 dislikes on their YouTube video.
It was the same as the Royal Rumble win. I remember all of the team at Celebrate, Mike, Mitch, Dimitri, everybody, everybody criticizing the fact that Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. I didn't criticize it. I said it was refreshing. I questioned whether or not Jey was able to carry that, and I don't think he was. I don't think he was booked well.
No. But he always seems gassed as well.
Yeah, but I will say this. I was the only one who called it right.
Yeah.
Next week, that's it for us. We're going to come off. Next week, it's a different one, because next week we're going to kick off a two-parter on the career of The Undertaker. But you're going to have to listen to it, because we're not going to stop. We're going to carry on. And the show will come to an end and pick up straight as we carry on. No intros. One exit. One intro, one exit.
There we go.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a really weird one.
I mean,
it's going to be a really weird one to edit.
Undertaker, I mean, what's there, not to go through? There's so much.
We will be talking about the Phenom coming into the WWF. We'll be talking about the Streak. We'll be talking about the Badass. We'll be talking about the Hall of Fame. We may even touch on the Skyscrapers. Who knows? But this is the two-part Undertaker. It's going to wrap up November. And then we're into Christmas, folks. And we got some episodes coming for you in December. Stefan, thank you for joining me as always. I will see you next week. For everybody else, so long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye. So long. Farewell.
In the words of Kenny Omega.
Goodbye.
Bid you adieu.